This is Jonathan Aguilar here for Pro Boxing Fans, joined by Mr. Sean Zittel. Sean, I've asked you for how many years to do an interview?
I don't know, like a year and a half? Maybe I don't hold the mic, right? Jonathan holds the mic, okay.
But here we are, fight week for Garcia and Barios. Before we talk about all of that, let's talk about your channel, Sean Zittel. All you've got to do is type the name in, and you obviously do a bit on Pull Away podcast. Just tell us about, going solo, and you've obviously built a really good channel. I think 30,000.
40.
Sorry, I've massively underplayed you there, but yeah, talk to us about it.
Yeah, well, first of all, Pro Boxing Fans is the best PBF since Pretty Boy Floyd, I would say. I think that's fair. My channel, I've been making the joke in the media. Fight Hype got the prime years. This is me on the downside a little bit. I still got something left in the tank on the Sean Zittel channel. Back in the United Kingdom, I'm sure you guys aren't familiar, but I'm like Joe Montana on the Chiefs. I'm still good. I don't know if I'm still winning Super Bowls like he did for the 49ers. Maybe there's a football equivalent. I'm like Ronaldo now in Saudi Arabia, right? Probably not as good as he used to be. I don't watch that sport, but I imagine. No, but Sean Zittel is my channel now. Like Jonathan said, 40,000 subscribers. I hope I don't come off as whining, but I do try to, as George Orwell said, right, a fellow Brit of yours, he said, journalism is printing something someone else doesn't want printed. And sometimes I have a penchant for wanting to say whatever it is that I think isn't being said. Sometimes I don't even fully want to do it, but I feel the need to do it. And so sometimes that can come off as negative when I do my thing with Raheem, the Radio Raheem, who's become very popular in the United Kingdom. But yeah, the channel is still about carrying on what I've done for over a decade, interviewing fighters and breaking down fights and trying to have good insight into the sport. But oftentimes when I do my analysis or when I talk about the bigger picture of boxing, I do try to find what's not being said that is the truth that should be said that maybe other people don't want to say, and I'll wear that hat and I'll say it. So yeah.
Have you had your interview with Dana White yet?
I have not. I reached out and they tried to refer me to Lawrence Epstein, their COO, who I believe is also on a board of directors for Allegiant Stadium out here in Las Vegas, Nevada, and Dean Murphy, who was the head of one of their affairs, I can't recall. I said we can do it on Zoom. We could do an interview on Zoom, and Dana's people did not get back to me, and I was okay with that kind of fizzling out, and because I think if we really get into it all, Dana being a supposed proud American businessman, well, if you feel that way, then why be funded by the government of Saudi with the Public Investment Fund? Dana talks a lot about being a savage and pulling yourself up by your bootstraps and that kind of stuff, and he's not doing that in boxing. Now I think long term they'll be successful. They may even succeed in all their plans to either become the only dance in town, the only show in town, or the biggest show in town. But there's a level of hypocrisy there, and hey, I guess we could all be hypocrites sometimes, but that's quite a big level of hypocrisy. But no, the interview never panned out. They tried to refer me instead, again, like I said, to Lawrence Epstein, Dean Murphy. I said we could do a Zoom. They didn't get back to me at that, and so that's where we were last left at.
On Dana White, obviously, big news. I don't know how big it is here, but definitely in the UK, Conor Benn leaves Matchroom, signs with Zuffa Boxing. The big question or the big talking point has been the quote-unquote disloyalty, loyalty, that people are questioning whether he, should have at least maybe given. Eddie said that he was just told by email, basically by the lawyer. But yeah, what's your reaction to all of this?
Yeah, it sucks for Eddie. I like Eddie but at the same time, while Eddie was talking and his retort to Dana was brilliant, it was hilarious, it was funny, it was vintage Eddie Hearn, clever, made you laugh. But while he was talking, Dana White struck back with real business and took one of his prized possessions in Conor Benn. And that has to strike deep for Eddie, because he stood up for Conor Benn in the aftermath of his PED scandal from a couple years ago. I remember when they fought Pistol Pete Dobson here in the United States, I grilled Eddie and Conor Benn, and Eddie went to bat for Conor Benn repeatedly, and I think on a personal level, even outside of the sport, he really considers Conor Benn a friend apart from business. And so, again, Eddie had the more clever insults, the good he cut a good promo, and then Dana responded with action and with business and hit him where it really hurts, not on the microphone but with the pen, and taking away again one of his prized possessions of his roster. So loyalty, you could talk about that, but ultimately fighters are loyal to themselves first and foremost, as many of us have to be in this world. So it sucks for Eddie, but I think Eddie was feeling himself. I think he was feeling good because he got that 5-year extension from DAZN. But Turki Al-Sheikh owns 13% of DAZN. He's been, and everything Eddie said about Dana really applies to him as well. Eddie said in an interview with me, I would shine his shoes, Turki Al-Sheikh. So, okay, he's Dana White's pappy, correct. He's also your pappy. He's also most people in boxing's pappy at this point. So it is the pot calling the kettle black a little bit there. And ultimately, your pappy, who you share as brothers, estranged brothers, you and Dana White, but have the same daddy, he said that his league with TKO and Zuffa will inevitably and eventually crush everything. Well, everything includes you too, Eddie. So you may have gotten that 5-year extension with DAZN, and I'd be curious to know, because Eddie was DAZN's main man before Turki Al-Sheikh ever came into the picture, with Leonard Blavatnik funding him $1 billion. I'd be curious how much he has that relationship cemented outside of anything to do with Turki Al-Sheikh. But Turki has been pumping a lot of money into DAZN. Like I said, he owns 13% of it, and you may have got your 5-year deal, but your wagon is still ultimately hitched to a man in Turkey who said, this league will crush everything, and everything includes you too, Eddie. And so it's almost fitting in that sense that a day after inking that deal and feeling good and getting your rocks off on Dana, and we all laughed, and people on Twitter were saying 10-7, 10-8 round for Eddie Hearn. He takes a fighter that you've went to bat for as much as any other fighter except maybe Anthony Joshua, in your career. So again, Eddie did a lot of this. He did it well, as he's one to do, and then Dana struck back and took one of his prized possessions. So.
Last question, Sean. Where do you think boxing's heading at the moment? You've been in the game for a long, long time. When there was Showtime, ESPN, boxing was huge.
Yeah.
Now everything is seemingly on an app. Is this a worry for boxing going forward? Because, especially in the UK, we've got Sky Sports, and that's the main platform that the casual fan has. So where is boxing heading, in your opinion?
Well, I'll be quick about the deeper scope beyond boxing, which is, the United Kingdom and the United States are both considered a part of the West, right? And a lot of people have been seeing the West in decline for the last, however many years, maybe even decades. And that'll sound like a very Western-centric point of view, but it is, by most geopolitical accounts, becoming a multipolar world where the United States' dominance is being knocked off its perch by a lot of different international forces, whether it be China or Russia, countries in the Middle East. And boxing's always been this microcosm of the bigger picture, like when Joe Louis knocked out Max Schmeling ahead of World War II between Germany and the United States and the United Kingdom and other countries as well. Ali and Frazier, at the time they fought, represented the peak of this political divide. Frazier was casted as the conservative guy, Ali as the spirit of the late 60s and early 70s as the outspoken anti-establishment guy, and the Four Kings represented kind of the decadence and prosperity of the 80s and all that. So I think right now, on a larger sense, you could argue that Saudi and the forces heading TKO, taking over boxing from United Kingdom promoters like Warren and Hearn, and I know Warren has had some ups and downs with Turkey recently, and really taking over the game in the United States as well from private American promoters like Arum and Heyman. You could look at it as a microcosm of the bigger picture of those countries kind of losing their stranglehold atop the world a little bit, but I was very long-winded about that. What it means for just the sport in general, it actually could mean that, like Max Kellerman's been forecasting, that boxing is going to come back to mainstream prominence in the United States. Dana, Ari Emanuel, Nick Khan, they're smart, and they know how they've done a good job making MMA more popular than boxing. Now, what's funny about boxing is, like I told Dana, the 5 biggest gates in combat sports history, they come in the last 10 years, and they all come in boxing. So even while boxing, that tells you boxing has this intrinsic value, that even when it's a mess, it finds a way every now and then to outgross this machine of UFC or whatever, this machine of UFC. But that being said, I think the best case scenario, and it's a realistic scenario, is boxing returns to mainstream prominence under the people who have taken MMA to heights beyond boxing oftentimes. I do think there's a chance that it loses its soul in the process, and what I mean by that is, people talk about fighters having to all wear the same trunks, and it feels more corporate. When Max Kellerman is talking about boxing needs to be like the NFL or the NBA, well, those leagues are much more corporate than the crazy cockamamie Wild West of boxing, which produces. Part of what's beautiful about boxing is that it's different than soccer, as we call it in the United States, or American football or basketball. There's just something very commercialized and restrictive and corporate about that in ways that are kind of hard to articulate and quantify for you right now. But if you're a boxing person, you know the different beats it hits from other more mainstream sports. So there is a chance that's the downside in them ultimately bringing boxing to that NFL, NBA level. I think the worst case scenario, if Zuffa is to have their way, is that they struggle to wrap their hands around what it is that makes boxing boxing. It's a more, in a lot of ways, urban sport than MMA. MMA grew to big heights because they had a lot of white talent. I'm not a Democrat or Republican. I'm not trying to be a liberal or a conservative when I say that, but it's the truth. Whether it was Conor McGregor, Chuck Liddell, Ronda Rousey, they were able to parlay that into stardom. Boxing, at least in the United States, it thrives off its Black American and Mexican American talent, a lot of Latino talent. Maybe they won't ultimately know the way to market that, although they have great success with Black American talent like John Jones. I know Alex Pereira is Brazilian, and they've done a great job with the Eastern European market too. So, but there is a chance that they can't quite replicate what De La Hoya was able to do, what Mayweather was able to do, what Canelo was able to do, and they go, all right, well, this is now our second fiddle to MMA, and boxing fans feel that, and boxing has to serve as an appetizer more times than not to their real baby that they really know how to control and know how to push to the masses, and that's mixed martial arts, that's UFC, that's WWE. So I think that's, if Zuffa is to have their way, that's the worst case scenario, is they don't quite know how to market it to those demographics, and they don't know how to appeal to that, and boxing has to kind of settle for being the stepchild to their bigger properties that they ironclad know how to deal with and how to push to the masses. Best case scenario, boxing is back on top, and those gates that every now and then find a way to outgross the UFC, they become more common, and the people walking down the street like Eddie once did, do you know Deontay Wilder? And nobody knew who Deontay Wilder is. They'll they would know who a Deontay Wilder is under the Zuffa model. And another bad scenario is their previous history of exploiting fighters comes to pass and all of that. But yeah, I think those are two realistic scenarios laid out if Zuffa is to do their thing.
Sean, really appreciate your time. Obviously, yeah, go check out Sean's channel, Sean Zittel. You'll have your reaction to this Conor Benn situation with Raheem, I believe, tomorrow. Yeah. Your post-fight reaction, and I'm sure you'll have a load of interviews from Garcia and Barios. Just literally, Ryan or Barios, who wins?
Oh, Ryan. I think there's a talent gap there, and hard work beats talent. Talent doesn't work hard. Barios is a worker bee, like Jim Lampley would say, but Ryan is the thoroughbred. Ryan's the guy with that natural fast twitch and hand speed and punching power. Barios is a decent puncher too. I could see him replicating what Luke Campbell did and dropping Ryan Garcia, but I think the talent gap, and a lot of times when we break down these championship level fights, it comes down to a lot of subtleties, distance control, technical skills, styles making fights. I just think Garcia is a more naturally gifted fighter than Mario Barrios, and I think that will tell in this fight.
Cool. We will see what happens. Sean, appreciate your time, mate.